Okay, so I'm going to get straight to the point with this one and make it relatively brief. I just want to talk about George Galloway, who's a very well-known left-wing firebrand in the United Kingdom. And I think that description absolutely fits him because this guy is, as far as I'm concerned, a complete and utter hypocrite. And there's a particular issue that I want to point out. Now, what I'm going to talk about is nothing new. This is already well established, at least to people who are informed. Um, but I just want to express this because I think that I've just watched a video from a few years back of Galloway saying on the Week news program, pointing his finger at Jackie Smith, the former Home Secretary, and saying, "You killed 1 million people in Iraq." Now, there's a lot of questions being brought up. People might say, "Why am I bringing up old news?" I'm bringing it up because there is a lot of things being said in light of the Chilcot inquiry and the Iraq War. It's already been well documented how disastrous that policy was, and I stand by that. But I think it is very important that there is fairness in this evaluation and that those on the hard left are also scrutinised for their positions. George Galloway stood there, pointing his finger at the Home Secretary and said she murdered 1 million people in Iraq because she supported the government. Now, firstly, if you want to blame every death in Iraq on Tony Blair and George W. Bush, you are by extension exonerating the sectarian thugs who actually killed the majority of civilians. Secondly, I am so sick of the hypocrisy of George Galloway. There is famous footage of Galloway meeting Saddam Hussein, and in that footage, from the 80s, he says, "Sir, I salute your courage. Sir, I salute your courage. And I want to bring you heartfelt support from people who can see that you are," I forget the rest of the phrase, but I'll put a link to this. And it's absolutely outrageous for this man to slander and demonize others whilst he supported a mass murdering dictator. Worse than that, he has outright lied about it on numerous occasions. He claims, "Oh, well, just a business delegation." This was lavish praise. He shook Saddam's hand, he stood there and he praised him. If he would at least say, "I made a dead serious error of judgment in that I was wrong, I'm sorry," he might have some credibility. Tony Blair, for all his faults, at least has acknowledged some of the mistakes that he made. He may not have made an outright apology, but Blair has shown far more humility than George Galloway has. Now, people will say George Galloway wasn't Prime Minister, so it's less consequential. That's true in one sense, but Galloway is hailed up by so many people as some sort of hero. As far as I'm concerned, this guy is an odious hypocrite, and I'd be tempted to say traitor. This man works for Russia Today. He has a news segment called Sputnik. Russia Today is a belligerent Kremlin mouthpiece. So frankly, I cannot tolerate George Galloway and his odious hypocrisy. And to Galloway supporters, what is your answer to that? Okay, I don't want you to turn around and say, "Oh, Blair done this" or "Jackie Smith done that." Answer specifically that point about Galloway praising Saddam Hussein. Let's just recap for a second. Saddam Hussein, the dictator who started the Iran-Iraq War, one of the bloodiest wars in modern history, which killed more than 1 million people by some accounts. The dictator who isolated his country, leading to sanctions that killed thousands of Iraqi children, Saddam's fault. Who brutally tortured dissidents, who invaded Kuwait. A lot of people, when they judge Tony Blair and the Iraq War, conveniently forget just how awful Saddam was, who waged genocide against the Kurdish people. This goes on and on. Saddam Hussein was one of the most brutal dictators of modern times. There's no question about it. George Galloway stood there and defended him. If Galloway would at least apologise for that, he might have more credibility. But the hypocrisy of this man is disgraceful, and as far as I'm concerned, he should be kept well on the fringes of British politics. He is a demagogue, he is a liar, and he's also a nauseating hypocrite.